We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
You're listening to Drunk on Broad, Philly Sports Unfiltered! From Broad Street down to the bank, we bleed red, green, black, blue, and gray. Racial classes, game day pride, Philly's hardware, drunk on the ride. A.G. Elliott flying on at night, Six Stars lights up, the sky's so bright. Flyers crash like thunder on the ice, Philly swinging, everything's nice. Union chanting, passion loud and raw, city of grit, we break every law. Uptown, drunk on broad, no we don't sleep. City of champions, running deep. For another round, let's make it loud. Feel it forever. We're Broad Street proud. Drunk on Broad, yeah we're home. Drunk on Broad.
Oh, well, good morning. It's a Thursday morning edition. It's Mark, it's April 2nd. This is not an April Fool's episode. This is we're live and direct from the what I think spring is trying to start.
Yeah.
The weather seems like it's kind of broken a little bit, but then I saw the weather report a couple days from now and it's like lows in the 30s next week, and I'm just like, I know this is March, but like it was March, now it's April. It's just like, just figure it out. Pick one.
Yeah.
But no, it's this Flyers team has really kind of, since the Olympic break has really played well. Mark, I don't know if you can see, but I remember I told you I had an Olympic sweater in the cart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it came in,
Oh,
and it's better than expected.
yeah. That is sweet.
It was sharp. It was sharp coming out of the box, and I was like, man, like the fact that they won gold really hit. But to see, to see the way that they won, and then to see now how this team has kind of played coming out of the break. And now, obviously, we'll spend a lot of time talking about the addition of Porter Martone and what that can do for, obviously still considering, right? Like he's not 20 yet. So like, we're still talking about a kid, but what that can mean for the team moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, they've come out one of the better teams out of the Olympic break, right? So they're very much in it right now. Like even with the loss to Washington on Tuesday,
Yeah.
they got a little bit of help. Some teams also lost. So, you can look at it like a missed opportunity, and you can also look at it as a chance to, kind of gives you another crack or two at it. So,
Right.
um, it's going to come down to like, the final game of the season, I think, for the final wild card spot, but also like that third spot in the Metro, I think it is still kind of like there sitting there.
It's
So,
it's still kind of viable, right? Like you're talking about, right? They're sitting right now in the Metropolitan at, and I'm looking just to see 86. So they're sitting at 86 points, right? They're playing, and they're going to play this game coming up against the Islanders, who's sitting at 89,
yeah.
which could be a huge swing. And depending on how Columbus plays, in that interim time, like they're at 88. they're
Yeah.
they're they're just as much in the mix for that third metropolitan spot than than that wild card as well.
Yeah. So, um, the big thing I think for the group, right, is like and they seem pretty good about that, like as a team to a man. Like they
Hmm.
seem very just focused on what they have to do, focused
Right.
on their game, and they'll. Although it was funny, I think uh, the win over Dallas, I believe, with the Trevor Zegras overtime winner.
Time goal.
Uh, yeah, they showed or Connecting had spoken to the media after, and they asked him about like the scoreboard watching and all, and he did say that he was taking a peek at the out of town scoreboard
For sure.
during the game, you know, which is funny because you just don't hear players sometimes, they're not always that honest about it. He was like, yeah, I was peeking at it a couple times, like,
I mean,
uh,
Mark, I got to be honest. I would tell them they were lying if they weren't. I think this is there's a situation, right, where you're at a point in the season where you really you need you've put yourself in a position to need the help of not just one team, but a pile of teams to be able to kind of jump the teams that they need to jump to be in a position to either acquire that wild card or that third metropolitan spot. To like, it's it's interesting though. It's interesting to see them be as transparent as they are because they aren't always.
right, yeah, yeah. So I thought that was funny hearing him say that, but yeah, no, I mean, like they have another big game tonight against Detroit, and
Yeah,
Detroit kind of in the mix as well. So
yeah.
it'll be another night of scoreboard watching and trying to get their game done. I'll be down there. I'm covering tonight's game
Oh,
for Fired Up,
nice.
so I'll be there, and so we'll see what happens with the run here. But they're one of the better teams really out of the Olympic break, and it's been cool to see it. Like it's been a welcome distraction, and during everything that's gone on here for me personally in the last couple weeks and stuff like that. So um, if you're this close to, like, let's just get in. You know what I mean? Like, don't
Yeah,
close and miss it. Like, get in, get this close and get in. Like,
yeah.
you know, I could care
And
less about the draft pick here, the draft pick stock at this point.
yeah, I mean, they're in that very much limbo spot, right? Like they're like
Mhm.
at some point they're going to need, and we've talked about it in the past, but like at some point they're going to need to make a push to get the player in the middle that's going to solidify everything,
Mhm.
um, and to think about at this point, like you're going to be picking in the middle of the round regardless, whether
Right.
you make the playoffs or not, and I think that's a better position than they've been in the past, which is completely out of it and not in the conversation at all. So the fact that like the phrase that I feel like we've used a lot in the past is like are they playing meaningful games at the end of the season? And the fact that they've had a stretch, to be able to, what are they? I'm trying to look at it right now. They're 7-1 in their last 10.
Yeah.
That they've put themselves in a position to be playing meaningful games down the stretch, which can only be helpful. Any of those games that kind of pseudo mimic the playoff experience
Sure.
are only going to be beneficial when you think about the player development for this team moving forward.
Yeah, and I think too, like a lot of pieces here that have played well during this whole stretch. These are guys that are going to be here, right? Like this isn't
Oh, yeah.
just like the veteran players kind of pushing it's I think that's also what's exciting about the whole thing is like Trevor Zegers has been very good offensively and stuff like that since they've moved him full time to center. Flyers need to figure out
Mhm.
if he could be a center. It
Right.
looks like that is definitely possible. Michkov has had his moments there in the second half too, where he's been good,
Mm-hmm.
and has helped create plays. I mean, um, Jamie Drysdale's ascension this year has been. I mean, his game's improved by leaps and bounds. I think
Yeah.
on the back end, that's a really exciting a development here, and so it's like guys that like are kind of like youngish veteran guys that are going to be here when this thing kind of all comes together. And even guys like Alex Bump and all got the call up, and Denver Barkey, that like they've both um,
Yeah.
have contributed positively. Barkey's like a kind of like a key cog on his line. Bump was out of the lineup Tuesday to make room for Martone because there's a slew of wingers, so someone has to sit. But
Yeah.
you know, uh, it's good to see all of those guys kind of contribute in a positive way. Um, and so I mean, I can't forget about like Owen Tippett has been incredible
Yeah.
here, like at times in games. He's always had moments where he's flashed it. It seems like I wouldn't even say game to game consistency, Don. I would say like
Mm.
shift to shift consistency. He looks a
Okay.
lot more. He looks a lot better. Like in terms of just like his consistency from shift to shift, and he's had some really exciting moments out there too. So
Yeah.
and he's of course locked in a long term contract. So they're it's a lot of guys that are going to be here, and that part is exciting.
Yeah, I think to see you're seeing it in kind of like drips and drabs, right? And I think the next elevation for this team is to be able to kind of put it all together, and to put it all together, not like you're talking. Like sometimes you see it shift to shift, sometimes it's game to game, um, and I think when you look at the difference between the teams that are playing at the top of the standings and then the teams that are kind of fighting to be in the back end of the playoffs, the biggest difference to me when you look at those two types of teams is that those teams are playing more consistently, right?
Yeah,
And like you know, and the Mark, one of the most surprising things to me is to see the Panthers, the drop off of that team. And I know that they've had an epically impressive run to be able to not only go back to the playoffs as many times as they have, but to go back and win the cup as many times as they have. Like those, and I know that those kind of take a toll on them, but we kind of saw earlier in the week that like they've essentially just shut everybody down.
yeah,
Um, they're long out of it. Like the Maple Leafs, who are a team that that are normally in the mix, are not. You're seeing teams that you know it, the Sabres, which
yeah,
is like a team that I would not have anticipated being a team that's going to at this point in the season with a handful of games to go, already sitting at 100 points. Um, the Hurricanes seem like this is the year that they can really take advantage of being a team that's consistently at the top, that always kind of ran into the buzzsaw that was Florida. Um, I just look around and go like, you got a Penguins team that's got the aging superstars that are just sitting there at 92 points and playing consistently. But the biggest difference is like those teams do it night to night. This team, I don't know if they've necessarily have the pieces that they figured out how to do it from night to night, but I think that's something that in order for them to get to that will need to be addressed with some kind of move.
yeah. Definitely. I mean, Briere had kind of said that too. He did he spoke to the media. Um, I guess it
Mm-hmm.
was yeah. It was I think it was the Dallas game before the Dallas game, and um, they trade Bobby Brink at the trade deadline to kind of like clear out this glut of wingers they have, and
Mm-hmm.
then um, Alex Bump gets called up, and then they sign Martone, and he jumps right in, of course, and they're both wingers too. So you're kind of back in the same position where you were, where it's like kind of you have a
Yeah.
dearth of centermen. You have it's a legitimate strength of the team that they have so many quality wingers, but then like it's like where does everybody play?
Right.
And then that kind of too, it made me kind of think. I said this too on the Fired Up show this week was I wonder they'll never like the Flyers will never say this, right? But I wonder
Mhm.
if they kind of arrived ahead of schedule. Like they didn't expect to be,
To be in
hey,
this
like
position right now. Yeah.
we might sneak into the playoffs. Uh and then you have all these wingers, which is obviously a strength I didn't even mention. We didn't even mention Tyson Forrester, who's working his way back
Right.
from an injury, and at times he was one of their better all around players. Earlier in the year and going back to last, so
Right.
another winger in the mix,
Right.
and something's going to have to give there, of course,
Yeah.
like you said, and it's just going to be a matter of, I guess, like for what, and but there is a lot of you mentioned Florida. I think a lot of that might. I think just there's a lot of tread on those tires, and
Yeah.
they, I think got off behind the eight ball with injuries and stuff to start the year, and but like them shutting stuff down and all, like they're smart like that. They're gonna take that top pick, and they're gonna try to like refire next year, and
You know that it's like it's dialed in. Like that,
yeah,
there's no way that there's not like a very very impressively strategic plan in place to say
oh yeah,
either that pick is like the Mark. It wouldn't surprise me if that pick ends up being like the number one pick. Like
oh
if
yeah,
some reason they end up in a lottery and they get the best player in the draft, or they figure out a way to use that pick to trade for
yeah. Something.
another super, like it just
Watch it.
maybe they're prying Kachuk's brother from Ottawa for
Oh my
to
gosh.
trade the number 4 overall, let them play together. Like nothing would surprise me about that.
I was actually we've done this show way too long because I was actually just gonna say that. Watch them like flip the pick for Brady or something, and get the Kachuk
Oh, that's
brothers on
great.
the same team. That would be, oh my god, that would be insane. But and then like of course you mentioned like kind of the reckoning that's going on in Toronto, like what happens there. Um,
Yeah,
Brad Tree Living, their general manager was let go the other day, so there's like a whole restructuring of things going on there, and now you're looking at all the players too. I mean, like I don't know what the plan is with Berube behind the bench, but I would imagine the next general manager is going to bring in his own guy, and then you
yeah,
start looking at the team and the roster and trying to figure out where you go
yeah.
from here. And so that's going to be an interesting story to follow. Toronto's always a big major headline because they're Toronto, but
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. And but it's a different kind of look. Yeah, the playoffs definitely look different. You mentioned
For
Carolina,
sure.
chance. Absolutely, for sure. I'm sure they're looking at this like, hey, we're not only one of the better all around teams in the conference, but we also have the experience now. Like
Yeah.
Buffalo has had this great run this year. They finally put it all together. They're humming, right? Tate Thompson, all them guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a good group, and they finally have gone from, hey, why isn't it working in Buffalo? They have some talent, to now it's like it's finally kind of all snapped together. They
It
got
just clicked. Yeah.
yeah, like so they look like they're not going anywhere anytime soon, but they don't have the experience that Carolina has. Carolina's been in the trenches here for the playoffs, so they know what it's like. They know what it takes to play in these types of games. So it's going to be fascinating. Like the playoffs should be, they're always fun, but they'll be especially fun, and maybe we'll get some playoff hockey in South Philly too.
Yeah,
So
who knows, man? And like it's funny. Like you look out west, and there's just like an impressive amount of teams. The teams that are out west that like, right? Colorado is just has just spent the year kind of running through everybody,
yeah,
and you're sitting there looking at Dallas, and they're sitting at 100 points, and they're second place in the Central,
Yeah.
and like they're you've got Anaheim, and they've kind of got going back and forth with Edmonton, but you just look at these teams, and you really just do see the disparity in talent, and you look at you're going to have to figure out a way to be really creative. Obviously, we've talked about the fact that like you're talking the plan had we've now diverted to plan B and C and D because of all the other moves that have gone in place. But like Mark, I'd be lying if I don't sit here and look at Anaheim
Mm,
at the top of the Pacific,
yeah.
and I look at Cutter Gauthier and the season that he's had,
Yeah.
and kind of and play the what if game,
Mm,
because I feel like as good as he's been to be as productive as he has in the role that he has,
mm.
feel kind of envious that I'm like that where could, and I'll pose this hypothetical, where could they have been if he was on the team?
Yeah, like it's interesting, right? Because his draft year, I remember doing some draft stuff. We did some draft shows for Fired Up,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember looking into that, and you could probably find it in our archive somewhere way back. But
Oh
we
yeah.
had talked about Cutter in that draft, and I remember saying his draft year. I was like, talented guy and all, but I was like, I don't know if he could, like, the big question about him was where he was going to play. Is he a winger or a center? And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny because I think he's doing a lot of his damage at wing this year.
Yeah.
So if he were here, and it's always like the sliding glass door thing, like the
Mm-hmm.
uh like if they have Cutter, they probably do they have Martone, I think. Like, is the team better? So they wouldn't have
Yeah.
been in a position to take Porter Martone. So it's kind of like, but I mean, like Cutter's obviously has reached his one of his one of his levels has already, like, he's already a bona fide top six guy.
Right.
So and is scoring plenty of goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
38 goals, 27 assists. Right. You're
yeah.
sitting at in 65 points in 73 games. Right. You're like almost at a point per game.
Hmm. Yeah, and I I wonder too, right? Because, and I don't mean this as a knock on the guy, because, but like Owen Tippett's like an older player, right? Like he's in his like late 20s now,
Yep.
and or approaching his late 20s, and we often talk about him like, oh, if he could be more consistent, he could be a 35 goal guy. Oh, if he was more consistent, he could score 40. It's funny when we talk about that as a player like who's like in his late 20s now. And Cutter Gauthier is
Mm-hmm.
actually that player now,
At
like
22.
at 22. So it's like, you know what I mean? Because there's this big debate online, not to veer off topic, but
That's all
there's
right.
a big debate online about Owen Tippett and like, is has he found another level, or is he just on one of his hot streaks that we've seen him get on? And it looks more impressive because of the
Yeah.
games and and I think that's a really interesting debate. Like he's still gonna like round out to a 50-point player. So like the
Yeah.
consistency's still kind of, like on the whole, you
Yeah.
know. But
It's
yeah,
that word.
yeah. And it's funny to look at it like that. To see him be the player that he was, and like you said, to kind of play the what if game. Um I mean, he would be bona fide, like he'd be a top, top line left wing or whatever on
Yeah.
the Flyers. So um, that would be um, that would obviously be a big deal to have a player like that, and it would be exciting because they hit on his talent.
For
But
sure.
um, they'd still be in the same position where I think we would still be having the same conversation about like what are we going to do in the middle of the ice, because
Right.
like
You
you know
still
what I
have,
mean.
and it kind of that is the that's the $1 million question. It's the question that's going to be for forever and a day until they're able to fill, right. It's Mark, to make a cross sports analogy, it's essentially the same as the Phillies trying to get a right-handed bat to bat behind
Yeah,
Bryce Harper.
yeah,
Like until you can keep plugging guys in and keep taking flyers on guys, but like until you get the guy, you're always going to be in that position, um, to say like what if. And
yeah.
part of it is hard because they did bank on this offseason, with the guys that they thought might be available to be able to throw a giant pile of money at somebody.
Mm,
Um, Now you might be throwing a giant pile of prospects at somebody to be able to,
yeah,
because you might be in, you're gonna at some point have to jump to
right.
be, to say like, no, we're in that level of competing, we're ready to make that move,
Mm,
and kind of know that they have, for whatever reason, they have solidified their farm system. Their farm system is in a position now where they're starting, because they've drafted in the position that they have. They're
hmm.
starting to draft. They're starting to kind of build up that farm system um, into places where they have, the depth of talent to be able to at least be in the conversation to make some of these moves, right? And
Yeah,
that's,
right.
you kind of see that, but to, the addition of Porter Martone, right? We have
Mhm.
the night of epic debuts, right? It's the much anticipated debut of Andrew Painter and
Yeah, that
Porter
was cool.
Martone. They both happen on the same night, which was like, it was really cool to have, like, and you know kudos to the boss lady who's still asleep right now, but like, I asked for two TVs when we redesigned the Denmark, and it has not disappointed. So be
Nice.
able to put like both of them on at the same time and be able to kind of like just flip flop the mute buttons.
Yeah,
I'm getting really good at like dual thumb remotes,
yeah,
like mute on one, but like it's funny because it's like I gotta have like the TV that's on the right, I gotta have that in the right hand and have the TV that's on the left, because it's like I can't, like, I'm like pointing them like across each other, but to have that debut, and to be able to add a guy who, you know the Flyers luck out in terms of like Michigan State has the early exit, in their postseason run, in the NCAA, so you're able to add, a guy who really did, do a fantastic job as, a freshman, to be able to produce on the ice. But I'm reading a stat right. He's one of 5 freshmen in Michigan State history to put up 50 points in a season
yeah,
since 1991. So you're talking about a guy who, has a lot of the skill set that it'll allow him to be influential at this level.
yeah, yeah. I think so. And his debut was very. It was cool. Like it'll be a really cool Philly
Right.
sports trivia question down the road. Like especially
Yeah,
if
for sure.
Painter and Martone both kind of reach their potentials and become kind of like anchors to the Phillies and the Flyers respectively. Like
Yeah.
it'll be cool to like look back and be like, oh yeah, they made their debuts the same night uh,
Hmm.
with their teams. And Martone, like I thought in the game against Washington, looked very much like a kid playing in his first NHL game, which
For
is fine.
sure.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Uh, and it's also too like very like it's a tough position to be in, right? Because like he's obviously an important part of your planning,
Yeah.
and then it's like, but you're dropping him right into a wild card
Oh,
push, and that's tough. Like
yeah.
you know, and like it was funny because he looked he had like good and bad moments in the game, right? His like early in the game, he took a delay of game penalty, flipped the puck over the glass. He had a great scoring chance. Him and Michkov teamed up for a good scoring
Yeah,
chance. Uh, I think at the end of the second period or something like it was. But you know, like some good, some bad. It was a mixed bag, but he'll get more comfortable the more games he plays.
for sure.
And you know, like I said, he's obviously a big part of the Flyers' future. And it's just so exciting that he's here, like that he's now
Yeah.
here. Michkov is here. I would love to see them on like opposite wings on the same line, see how that could look. Um, you know, and it could be really fun, and
Yeah. Oh
it
yeah.
will be fun with him. You know, and you know, so I already saw some good things in his debut. There was also, like I said, like it was a mixed bag, and but it'll be interesting to see what the plan is here moving forward for
Yeah.
him. Like, do you keep him? Do you just keep him in, or are you going to rotate him with Alex Bump, who you know is also had some really good moments, and he
Hmm.
was also another kid that they were uh, excited about, and has the you know has done a nice job here.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so it's just it's the matter of like kind of where do you fit everybody in? Where does everybody play?
Hmm.
Because they're all they all kind of play the same positions.
Yeah, and Mark, it's a good problem to have, right? Like
Very good
you're talking
problem.
about,
Yes.
right? Like this is kind of the position that you almost want to be in. But I think you know to talk about his debut a little bit, like you saw the little like the mistakes early. I think the important thing for me is like I saw by the time he came out in the fourth quarter, jeez, by the time he came out in the third period, he was you could see that there was a comfort level there, right? Like
Mhm.
at some point, however long it takes, right? It just clicks and you're like, it's just hockey, right? Like it's
Yes.
just a game. Like play the game.
Yeah.
Um, don't oversimplify. Like just go out and play. And I think that is kind of what I saw. I, by the time the third period rolled around, he seemed like he was comfortable, right? He seemed
Mhm.
like right, he's aggressive in the like in the offensive zone, right? He's taken he had five shots on goal. Like you had like you have the opportunities to be able to say like those are and like the bright spots are there and they're there enough, right? Like the way that he was playing in front of the net, right? There was one play, Mark, where there was like the puck was like on the boards and he kind of like hung around
Mhm.
the group and then maybe like 3, 4, 5 seconds and then goes in, knocks it out, and it gets back to the point and creates another shot. It creates another offensive opportunity. Like we haven't had a really intellectual player, and
Mhm.
that to me seemed like a really cerebral play from a guy who's playing in his debut and hasn't turned 20 yet.
Yeah. I think his skill set's going to translate really well, and I think it's going to translate relatively quick. If not, we don't see him start um, producing like putting up points. If we don't see it like right away, definitely next season because um, from what I've seen is like from a physical standpoint. I mean, he's just like ready to play in the NHL. You can kind of
Mm-hmm.
see like from like his like even the way he was moving out there, the pace of play didn't seem like it was overwhelming to him, at least not to
No, not at
me.
all.
So which sometimes can be a struggle for guys. Guys come up
Mm-hmm.
and they like they're like, wow, like this moves a lot faster than I thought. Like so then there's that like kind of thing. So I look at it like on a totally opposite end of a spectrum, right? When you look at like player development and stuff. Like look
Mm-hmm.
at a player like Denver Barkey, who's like a very smart player, but is very tiny. He's somebody who has to kind of like he's learning how to deal with like the physicality of like the NHL because he's
Yeah.
smaller. He doesn't have as much space, time or space. Whereas like Martone, I think it's just a matter of like the physical part's already down. He just has to like he needs the reps, and then like the points will start to come, I think.
For sure. For sure, right. And before we jump out of here, right, you've got 8 games left on the schedule. Really important stretch coming up. This game, right? You've got the game tonight against the Red Wings, right? You're going to go up to Long Island on Friday, and then you're going to play the Bruins at home on Sunday. Go back to Jersey on the following Tuesday, right? Outside of the game against the Jets, right? You've got all games that are all within the conference that are all important. But these next couple games are games against teams that are right in contention with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So the 2 points are imperative here. And
The wins in regular time.
Yes, regulation would be.
We gotta cease and desist from sharing the points.
Yeah, you don't want to give one away at this time of year. So
Right.
Ultimately, don't. Even if you absolutely have to give a point away, make sure you get the other one. Just
Correct.
You know what I mean. You don't want to be the one just taking the 1 point. But no, I mean, this is going to be a pretty pivotal stretch, and we'll see how they bounce back after the loss against Washington. Where I don't think I look at the game against the Caps, and it was just not. They just didn't have it that night, and that's going to happen. Especially when you're. I think like when you have such a slight margin for error, right? Like it's, they had been playing really well for a while. So, but Detroit's definitely beatable. The game up in Long Island, there'll be a really good one. Very, exciting. That'll be a really marquee matchup for playoff positioning and stuff like that. So, hopefully next time, we come on here, we're talking about a playoff series,
Listen, they've got 8 games in the next 2 weeks, so they're it's a really tight stretch of pretty much they're in a position now where they're playing like every other day, or they've got, I think today and tomorrow are the last set of that's the last back-to-back game that they'll play. Except for the last night of the season, they play Monday, Tuesday with Carolina and Montreal. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see how that plays out. But I mean, Mark, fingers crossed that on the back end of the next time we talk, that we're talking about a playoff matchup, and not having the postmortem of another season that almost was. But at the very least, Mark, I think what we'll have found out from this season is that they figured a couple things out, right? And they've solidified some pieces, which I think is that it's that slow progression climb where they've put themselves in a position to really kind of make they put themselves in a position to make moves so that they can be that team that is impacted moving forward. So yeah. Listen, on the way out, go Flyers. We'll be on the back end talking a little Sixers.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
You're listening to Drunk on Broad, Philly Sports Unfiltered. From Broad Street down to the bank, we bleed red, green, black, blue, and gray. Racial classes, game day pride. Phillies hardware, drunk on the ride. The aliens flying on at night. Six eyes lights up, the sky's so bright. Flyers crash like thunder on the ice. Phillies swinging, everything's nice. Union chanting, passion loud and raw. City of grit, we break every law. Down, drunk on broad. No, we don't sleep. City of champions, running deep. For another round, let's make it loud. Feel it forever. We're Broad Street proud. Drunk on Broad, yeah, we're home. Drunk on Broad.
Oh well, we're back. This is now drunk on the court. Mark, we're now talking about a team that has, for whatever reason, been able to flip the switch. Has been playing relatively better in the last couple weeks. You're talking about a team that is now sixth in the East. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've had a couple of games where they're put the points in the 150s. Albeit against some not great teams.
Yeah.
The game last night in the Wizards, it was like what 151, 135. Like
Yeah.
whoever took the over was cashing in on that one. I think they're in a position now, right, where they're not going to play bad enough to miss the playoffs. I think their biggest asset right now is the fact that if they can get to the playoffs healthy, Mark, we're gonna start sipping the Kool-Aid again, and we're gonna start talking ourselves into scenarios where I could see them getting into the Eastern Conference Finals, and the biggest news in the Eastern Conference, right, is the Kate Cunningham, which is awful to see that, like, he has the injury, and then with the collapsed lung, and then he's gonna essentially be out for the rest of the season. Which is a guy that is like a catalyst for that team that's sitting 4 games north of the Celtics at the top of the East. But I'll be damned, Mark, if the Celtics don't just like they look like they're a team that just like, oh, we're just gonna bring back Jason Tatum off a horrific injury last season to just kind of like slide him in and just go on another run again. And I think their biggest asset is being able to avoid. I need them to at least avoid the Celtics in the first round. Like, I just can't, because they don't. If I'm being honest, the Celtics they wouldn't stand a chance based on the way that the Celtics are playing right now.
No, that's true. Yeah, the Kate Cunningham thing you mentioned, that sucks, man. Seeing that, and especially too, like, for, like we were saying about, you mentioned Detroit, like Detroit's been in that spot all year, like, so
Wire to wire.
yeah, so that's unfortunate for them. Uh, and yeah, like you mentioned Boston, and too, like, to lose a player like Tatum, and then to have like Jaylen Brown just be like so as good as he's been all year, like it's just like they're just able to slide up, slide him up
Next
into
man
the
up,
wall.
and it's crazy. It's crazy because when you look at their roster is full of like a bunch of dudes.
Yeah,
Like,
they're like they get guys. They're this current iteration, like this last run of Boston. It's kind of like the pop San Antonio thing, where it's like no matter what, you can plug somebody into that system, and
for real.
they'll thrive in it.
Mark, we're talking about Peyton Pritchard and Derek White. I mean, the Vucevic trade looks incredible for them. But like, the guys that they're bringing off the bench, like it's just I don't like. There's nobody on their roster that I'm like, wow. But they all just play. They've all just bought into that brand of basketball, and they just play really well together.
Yeah, yeah, they've done a nice job and kind of navigating that. As much as I hate to admit it, the Tatum thing and
They really
uh,
have.
getting him back and making a push for another title is definitely going to be like you mentioned, like in conjunction with I think with the Cade Cunningham thing. Now it's like you probably feel a lot better if
Yeah.
you're Boston, like about like oh like one of our major obstacles we may run into. They're down a pretty significant piece now. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, so I mean last night for the Sixers it was the big scoring night even against even if it was Washington or whatever like to have PG have a game like he did like last
Yeah.
night I think was really really important for this group him coming off this suspension um, really since he's come back from the suspension I think he's done a nice job
Yeah. I
uh,
would agree.
you know and that's kind of the like you said talking ourselves drinking the Kool-Aid and stuff it's like kind of like you know can he kind of can he give us this like can he give us this kind of run here and then
Yeah,
if
for
he
sure.
does with everybody else kind of contributing and pitching in and then eventually having Joel in like
Hmm.
uh, could be a tough out for somebody like it's
They're not going to play any back to backs, Mark. They're going to
yeah
be able to get them rest in between games.
hmm
Um, the stat mark that is most glaring though to me is when you look at their record versus winning teams versus their record versus losing teams.
yeah
That when they play a team with a losing record, they're 24-4. So they're winning the games that they should win,
they should win yeah
but they're 17-30 in teams with winning records,
yeah
which, like as it sits right now, and this is my other fear, outside of just not wanting to play Boston because I know it would be a rout because the matchup for them is just horrific with the way that Boston plays.
yeah
But like if it sits the way that it does right now, you're going to play the Knicks, and then you're going to have to deal with the Wells Fargo Center getting taken over by
by
Knicks fans
all those
because
haters.
as gross as it sounds, Mark, it has just become a regular occurrence. It's for whatever reason, it's
Yeah.
cheaper for them to take a train and the ticket and the train back than it is to just go to the Garden. And there's enough New York transplants of people that live within, that are living in that Scranton-ish area that are, taking the train up to New York for work that can come down and like that's my other thing. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to play the Knicks because I don't want to see that, but it's also a really bad matchup for them.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I think it's all going to come down to health, right? It's all going to
Yeah.
come down to how healthy is Joel. I think you've seen the comments from him, about kind of alluding to that his knee is a little bit better than maybe anticipated. That he was battling some other stuff. Um, I just this team feels like such an enigma this year because there's so much to like about some of the young guys, Maxi and Edgecombe.
Yeah. Both of those guys have been such a, they've kind of buoyed this whole thing this year with,
You're right.
everything that's gone on. They've kind of been constant positives. Um, I'm definitely, obviously we do this show, right? But I think definitely some bias. But I mean, VJ Edge comes my rookie of the year. Like, I don't.
It's kind of hard to argue.
I think the case for him is really good. I know Knippel's been out of this world, and Flag's still, Cooper Flag's still Cooper Flag, but
Right.
yeah, I mean VJ's my rookie of the year. this year. I feel like I would say that if I wasn't a Sixers fan as well. But you know, also too, like I think like if you are, it's one thing if you're like a young guy producing, but like if you're a young guy and you're on like the sixth seed of like a team that's like comfortably in the playoffs,
Hmm.
I think that is that should help your case. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that you're like all contributing to like when all else is equal. If you
Hmm.
can't really decide between Knipple or Edgecombe or whoever else, it's like um, I would take the guy that's on the better team. You know,
Yeah,
thinking that he's also contributing positively to that group
for
is
sure.
why they are where they are.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, he had another. You know, he was good last night too. Another good night for VJ, and um,
I mean,
so
his athleticism is like off the charts.
yeah.
Um, and if we had to endure what we endured last season to be able to, you know, have this be the result, I'm actually like retrospectively, I'm okay with it because it will allow them when they do make this transition away from Joel and PG to
Mhm.
be able to have young, athletic guys that can solidify the next wave of what you want to build around
Mhm.
for the net, for the foreseeable future. But like to me, I think the most ideal landing spot is if they can play well enough to jump Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think that's because at this point you're 5 games back of Cleveland, which at this point in the season is not going to happen. But like you have a 2 game, you're essentially a game and a half back of Atlanta. Like if you can figure out a way to get above Atlanta and then match up with Cleveland in the first round, um, and maybe hope that an upstart team that's playing really well, like Charlotte, is able to go in and stun Detroit without Cade, and because that Charlotte team um, is also playing really well. They're 7-3 in their last 10,
Yeah.
um, and they're a team that is really kind of playing. That would be a team going into the playoffs that would play like with absolutely nothing to lose. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, definitely. They're very like on the previous like on our flyer show we just recorded, like we talked about the Buffalo Sabres, and like you want to talk about
yeah,
like a franchise mirrored in futility,
mm-hmm,
and then like but like when you look at like to a man, when you look at like a team like Charlotte, you're like there's too much talent there
mm-hmm,
for it to not
for
like come
sure,
together eventually, and it's starting to look like that. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And you are right. Like they have absolutely nothing to lose. Like they get into the playoffs, it's just like a matter of like, hey, we're just trying to get our guys experience
yep,
here as a group, and um, you know, so they can kind of just like kind of go off the wall. You know what I mean?
for sure,
And just go out there and like you could tell guys like Lamelo and Knipple and Miller and Bridges and them guys like who are all like good, very good. Like they all know how to score the basketball. So it's like just go out there and tell them like, yo, just go out there and get buckets. Like, you know,
just they
and
they they really are, Mark, a team that is playing with absolutely nothing to lose, and
mm,
that would be a team like that would be able to shock a team like Detroit. That right? They've done a good job at balancing the roster with young guys and vets. They bring in
mm-hmm.
Duncan Robinson and that
Yeah,
veteran balance, but you know there's enough youth on that team to be able to get stunned in the first round, and then that would just kind of reset the entire East to the point where if you're the Sixers and you're the 5-6 seed, and then that happens, there's an opportunity that maybe you wouldn't match up with the Celtics until the Eastern Conference Finals,
yeah,
and
sure.
then and if you're there at that point, then who knows?
Yeah.
But here's what I know about the Sixers, Mark. it wouldn't surprise me if in a year where we could have thought that this was the furthest thing from the a possibility,
Yeah.
that this would be the year that they would make a run.
Yeah.
And I know I've probably, if you go back to this time for the last couple of years, I know I've probably said that pretty much every time.
Yeah.
And at some point, I gotta stop. Maybe you know, it's the eternal optimist in me to kind of think about that. But like, if there was ever an opportunity to to make a run, that it wouldn't surprise me if like they're going into it healthy, and the matchups kind of play themselves out the way that they do, and
Yeah.
just see what happens. I think I'm kind of at this point where it's like I don't have any realistic expectation for them at all, other
Yeah.
than they'll be in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. No, I kind of feel the same way. And we started the show off by talking about like PG's effort last night and his
Mhm.
38 point game, and really, really efficient from the floor, good shooting and stuff. It's like, can we get a vintage PG for a playoff series where
For sure.
like he's just like a menace for a team? We've seen that, you know,
Right.
in happen in playoff series and bet where it's like it's happened to the Sixers where we're like, we cannot stop this guy. What is going on? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, can we get that vintage PG performance in a playoff series? That could be an X factor. You know what I
Yep.
mean? With Joel healthy, with Maxi and Edgecombe, our VJ Max combo at guard. Um, you know, he could be a real X factor in one of those series,
For
and we
sure.
just need him to do it in one. You know, if he
That's
cannot
it.
be a liability in the others, and just give us like this throwback, he could be a real difference maker in a series like that. Um, especially provided like if they were to run into like a Boston team, I would think like that would be where you really need like him to step
Right.
up on the wing on either Brown or Tatum, whoever it is. Like if you can kind of try to do your best to neutralize one of them,
Right.
and preferably probably Tatum, even with Brown playing as well as he has. Um,
Yeah. I mean, Mark, they were really ahead of the curve in terms of like roster construction when they put those two together, because when that draft was happening, there was a lot of conversation like, are these two guys that you really want to pair together? And then there was the whole conversation with them and who's going to get moved, who's the guy that's going to get traded, because
yeah,
you can't play them together all the time.
right.
And to Boston's credit, they just figured it out. They
Yeah.
figured it out, and they they have had really good roster construction in terms
Mhm.
of being able to maximize the talent that's there and really do a great job at building around them. So
Yeah.
I look at that and go, you know, I I'm envious
Yes.
because the Sixers had, as a franchise, way more assets and way more opportunities and did less
Yeah.
than the Celtics did with less. The Celtics have done more with less, and the Sixers are doing less with more.
Yeah. It's funny with Boston too. Like you go back to that, and I mean I remember those conversations and thinking the same thing about Tatum and Brown prior to that. Was like they're not going to be able to keep both of them. Like there's only so much
Yeah,
staggering of minutes that you can do, and then
right.
of course not only have they figured it out, but they've won a championship with both,
Right.
and like they're also like when you talk about like Tatum and Brown and stuff, and you like hear them talk, like it's like Boston like just know there's something about personalities and things like that that they just they're able to like I don't know if it's just the history of the organization or whatever it is where like they're just really able to sell guys on that where it's like, hey, like the Boston Celtic
Mhm.
way, like this is when you put on this jersey, it means something else, and
Oh
they
yeah,
kind of they're able to take guys like that, and then somehow like they're not only like two of the better players in the game, but they're also like two of the most selfless, like at the same time, and it's like
yeah.
you know it's
They play
hard to
really
like
well. Yeah, they play really well off each other. They
yeah
they they play a very when they're on the court together. They play a very complementary brand of basketball where
yeah
they allow each other to be. It's a mutually beneficial situation. It's cool to watch, but it's also frustrating because you know that they missed, and I say the Sixers missed on so many opportunities
right
to be in the position that the Celtics have been in.
right. It kind of feels to me like where you know this is hindsight being 2020, and not that you're not taking the talent always, but it's just like it kind of felt like the Sixers were just picking at the top of those drafts and hey, we'll figure it out later type of thing. Whereas like Boston was really focused on, even when they were picking at the top, um, focusing more on like, hey, we're trying to build a team. You know what I mean? And like
Mm-hmm.
we have to have guys buy in, and there's like you kind of like you draft these guys with the idea that you're bringing them into an infrastructure, where it was like
Yeah, right.
maybe the Sixers really didn't have that at the time. We were just drafting the talent, and um, because I mean, like even like we've seen like with Joel and all that's been there's a lot of stuff that's happened behind closed doors over the years that like with injury management and load management and all that other stuff that's been um, difficult to navigate
Right.
for the Sixers. And then when you have all those other issues where like guys really aren't stepping up for you when he's not out there, it kind of puts you in this position, where you're just kind of it's kind of like a perpetually revolving door of just like you know
Yeah.
but I'm hoping that ends with just like it seems like they have that now with Maxi and Edgecombe. They both seem to have that kind of like selflessness and like they hold each other accountable and all that, so that's good for the future of this team. For the present, it also works knowing that
Yeah.
we've kind of seen Joel and PG are at stages of their careers where they're like, it kind of feels like they just
Yeah.
want to win. So
Yeah. Mark, I think if they can model the game after the Celtics, right, and really see that as a model to build off of,
mhm.
where you have those two guys playing complementary off each other and then build around them. It could put you in a position to be really successful. So I think
Yeah,
to me, it's like, I'm going to, kind of take that for what it's worth because I'm looking at their production and, you know, I think the next step of this, right? You see some of the other guys a little bit down the roster and you see what they're getting from them. It is nice to see that Joel and Paul have really kind of like taken that step back. They realize that their role is to be complementary to those guys and kind of, be that veteran presence on the court. It's nice to see that you're not just kind of venturing into an abyss of like unknown.
right.
You can kind of see where this roster could be 3, 4, 5 years down the line.
Yeah, and it's like too like giving PG and Embiid their props like on that is like I think communicating with them, right? That
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, we know you guys were the first options at other times in your careers and stuff like that. And even though kind of like the crux of what we do is going to be built around VJ and Tyrese, you guys are going to get there are going to be nights as we see in playoff series and things like that.
Right.
There's going to be nights where they're not going to have it.
Yeah.
that's when we're going to need you. Like, that's when you're going to have the ball in your hands more often. That's when you're going to be able to dominate offensively and stuff like that. So be ready for that,
Right.
and I think they will be, like
Yeah.
you only need a couple real big efforts like that in a playoff series. Like we've seen it happen against the Sixers where
Yeah,
somebody
for sure.
goes off and that's the difference in the game. It's like there's a greater likelihood, right? Than that a Joel goes off when the other options aren't working, or a PG goes off offensively when something's not working, than a
Mhm.
random depth guy. And the Sixers do have some good depth with Grimes and Kelly, and those guys kind of offer some flexibility other places, and so maybe you have so there's a likelihood that that could happen. So just being able to
Mhm.
communicate that to the players, I think is a positive for a potential playoff series, knowing that, like, hey, like, there's going to be, we can't plan for it before the series, but there's
Right.
going to be a night where we're going to need you to have the ball, like you're going to need the ball. And um I think everybody kind of knowing that they're going to get theirs is also a good feeling. They'll be needed at
For
some
sure.
point.
For
So,
sure. And right, to round out the season, right, you're gonna have like these last 6 games, to end the season. Um, is going to be a challenging stretch, to say the least. Right, you're gonna play Minnesota and then Detroit and then the Spurs and then the Rockets, and then you end the season with two kind of cupcakes. And I
mm,
hope that they're in a position that they kind of need those 2 games against the Pacers and Bucks, because those are both two teams that are kind of that have kind of packed it in and floundered
hmm
um, in the second half of this season. Um, and just kind of see where the playoffs land. And but just to kind of put a bow on today, what, like,
hmm
talk to me about these last 6 games and your approach going into them.
yeah, like you had mentioned, like the record versus winning teams versus losing teams and all. Um, I would be treating especially the games against more competitive teams as like San Antonio, for example. Like, um, I'd like to see Joel in that game, like with
Yeah,
maybe selfishly as a basketball fan, I want to see him with Wemby against
with
Wemby,
Wemby. Yeah,
and but like I mean that's a great test, right, to get ready for a playoff series like that close to the end of the season, uh,
right.
to kind of get you into that playoff mode, like, and of course Minnesota with with Ant Edwards and stuff, like that'll be a good challenge for VJ and Maxi,
Yeah,
and um, so that'll be a good thing. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. Like I'm looking at those games so much as I'm looking at those games much more against Detroit as well, where how you perform in those games, because these are the types of teams you're going to play, um, when the season ends. But it's a good thing, to put a bow on it, as you said. Like it's a good thing to get out of that play-in situation,
yeah,
get into like the actual playoffs, and you know, just see where the cards fall. It's like there's nothing you can do. There's little you can do about the positioning. You're gonna have to play who you're gonna have to play. So,
for sure.
um, you know, so that's why you use these games against more competitive teams as an opportunity to, like, hey, use this as like a playoff simulation. Like we're looking at,
Correct.
you know, these are the types of players you're going to see in the postseason. So,
For sure. Well, listen, Mark, I hope the next time we talk, we're talking about two playoff scenarios,
oh yeah,
and we're talking Flyers and Sixers. There's nothing better than that area in the summer when
Mhm.
when you got the Phillies playing every night, and then you're kind of alternating playoff games with the Sixers and Flyers. It would be nice to have all three of them kind of playing simultaneously.
Yeah,
It's always a good time in in this city when it comes to the sports teams. But yeah, hopefully next time we're talking, we're breaking down playoff scenarios and we'll see where this team lands. But on the way out, go Sixers.